Hi,
My name's J. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and
Well,
you're watching AccessTV.org. Hey, Hartford. J. McCauley is running for mayor, and he has a plan. He's a man on a mission with a 6-point plan to realign Hartford's priorities. And so on this episode, this series that we're doing this week on the 6-point plan, I'm talking to J. McCauley about all of the elements of that plan. And if you're locked in today, we are going to be talking about silos and silo busting and mission-driven collaborations. So, yeah, let's get into it. J. McCauley, how you doing?
I'm doing real good. Real good indeed. How are you doing?
All right. All is well. So, we had a chance to really talk about communications. We had a chance to talk about education. But now we are going to dive into mission-driven collaborations and breaking out of our silos. But before we really get into the heart of it, what's a silo? Like, where's that term coming from? I'm put you on the spot again, and you could ask Alexa if your Alexa was working.
Alexa's not working.
No,
because we have no internet. There we go. There we go. The silos are. Think of what a silo is. You know, if you drive around the countryside and you see these towers that are used to store grain, that's a silo. And people, organizations, mission-driven interests become siloed. Missile silos. All right. They have these underground tubes where they put, intercontinental ballistic missiles. And I use that on purpose because that's oftentimes what silos wind up becoming. And so they're these little fiefdoms at worst, gated entities at best. And information stays within the silo. They become self-contained. And they become insulated from any outside influence. And, there are times when this is required, necessary, or good. But most times, if you're talking about agencies being functional, if you're talking about organizations in service to community or anything else, they become deadly. They become echo chambers where the only information that is shared is with the with the individuals that are inside the silo. So if you got an organization of 20 people who are in the business of helping other folks with food or information or any service, you become so insulated that you're no longer serving the interests of those outside. The people outside that want food, let's say it's a restaurant, they don't like beef, but you determine that beef is what people should be eating. It's on sale this week and we'll make a good beef meal. And this is all determined inside the silo. What do you think we should serve? I think we should serve beef. It's on sale this week and we'll do real good. So what happens is, your restaurant attendees, your customers, they don't eat beef. Yet here you've determined what they should have. Well, the same thing happens if you're providing services in the health department. We have seniors that are in need, but the health department considers, that's not something we really need to be concerned about. There are senior centers. Let them work with that. Let elderly services from the state work with them. We think we're going to focus on X. And so if you're not willing to take in information from outside, you become very, insulated. And we have too many silos. The departments become silos. Nonprofits become silos. Businesses become silos. Religious institutions become silos. Everything becomes self-contained, self-interest oriented. And before long, their only mission is staying alive. And it soon becomes at the expense of everyone else. And then they just become missile silos. You know, they're out to destroy anyone that has an idea. If you don't work well or play well in the sandbox, you wind up being kicked out of the silo. And so to me, they're recipes for disaster in the making. That's kind of long-winded, but I wanted to go slow so people kind of get a picture of just what a silo is.
I'd like to paint that picture a little bit further with an example of how what you're describing may play out. So imagine after school program. Like there's a lot of organizations in the city that have after school programs for the young people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the after school programming operate the way that you're describing. They are siloed. They are insular. Like they only talk to each other within that program.
Mm-hmm.
So one child can attend the after school program and get help with homework and maybe receive some other services, like how to fill out a college application or, you know, other kind of like enrichment services. That same child can go to another after school program provider and receive those same services. And there's only so much room in each program, right? Like there's only like 20 slots or 30 slots.
Mm-hmm.
You can only serve so many kids.
Mm-hmm.
So when that student goes to that other program, because the organizations are not talking to each other, they don't share data or information, that student actually is taking up spaces whereby that organization could actually be serving another student. But because there is that siloing happening, a lot of times it's the same child being serviced by multiple different organizations, and at the expense of other kids who actually need the services but can't get in because there's no more room or space. That's just one example or a scenario that plays out in the city of Hartford.
I would agree. That's a great example. As you're talking, it brought to my mind another one. Let's say the Board of Education. We were talking about education yesterday. Let's say the Board of Education and then the City Council. So, you know, if they're not communicating with each other, we talked about communications yesterday. The day before that, we talked about education.
Mm-hmm.
But all of these things dovetail. So the Board of Education is trying to move an initiative forward that requires, you know, some movement up at the state legislature. You would think that the City Council and the mayor's office would want to work with them on that and the Hartford delegation. But if no one's talking to each other, well, we don't need them. Oh, well, that's not our responsibility. Oh, well, we don't get involved in municipal issues. Instead of working together, everybody's in their own silos. And so you have to be intentional about working outside of those silos. And that's what one of our priorities are. We call it priority number 3, to be intentional, busting silos, working outside of silos, so that all of the agencies that are there in service to you, the constituent, are working for you and not themselves and their own self-interest. So that to me is something that has to happen.
So one of the other components here that make up this priority realignment that you talk about in your plan is doing some of this without fear of negative repercussions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's in our that's at the closing of our if you go to our website you can see the third initiative here. Mission driven collaborations working outside of our silos. And all too often what happens is when you do certain things, there's reprisals. You're punished. So if we float down here and we talk about that, you can see here, building a culture that encourages everyone to speak openly about creating new initiatives, sharing resources, or here it is, combining different organizations, initiatives without fear of negative repercussions. And you're punished for doing good. And that's real. I mean, you're punished for doing good. And that has to stop. So instead of creating a culture where if you're working on a project that in your scenario, the after school program, well, if you go to this after school program for which there's 20 seats and you just left an after school program where there were 20 seats and you're getting the same services, you're like doubling down, because people take the path of least resistance to get the most out of everything that they can. So perhaps those two agencies could combine their program and serve 40 or maybe even more. The negative consequence would be, well, if I do that, one of the executive directors is going to get lost. That would be a negative repercussion.
Or I'll lose my funding. That's a negative repercussion. And my funding is built on X, Y, and Z. And without that, so you see a scenario where individuals become self-serving, self-sustaining, self-interested instead of the interest of the client, the interest of the constituent. All right. Now, I'm not proposing or trying to say that we need to do this for nonprofit agencies. We should use that as an example. But when city agencies are affected, or we have control over that, or nonprofit agencies that are funded by the city. Now, if the city is going to give you taxpayer dollars for your nonprofit, well, the nonprofit is providing a service, but clearly they are not able to do this with their own resources or resources that they raise, so they come to the city. Well, if the city's going to fund these kinds of operations, then the city as a funder has a little bit of input in terms of what it would like to see in terms of outcome. Now, I've been in the room where a lot of stuff happens, and I've been behind the scenes where a lot of things go on. And so I've been all around all kinds of nonprofit agencies, the tricks of the trade and everything. So there are a lot of places where people can work collaboratively together, where their funding wouldn't be threatened, but their funding would actually be enhanced because they're working toward delivery of services that's focused to the constituent or the client or the consumer more than themselves. We were in attendance at a LISC. LISC is an acronym which it's escaping me right now, but it was hosted by the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, but the housing commissioner of housing, I believe was there, giving organizations information about a new initiative that was coming down. There's state funding that was being made available to communities. Not just Hartford. There are other communities, but Hartford in particular. And one of the things that I took away from what was being expressed was the need to think bigger. Think collaboratively, think bigger. And so in that, there were more opportunities to do something innovative.
Yes.
And impactful. And I think that's one of the things that's being expressed when you say here in the plan, no single institution can fix Hartford alone. When unified around a common goal, once isolated initiatives become collaborative powerhouses.
Yeah. There's such a thing as thinking too small or not thinking outside of the silo. Would be a good example of thinking too small. Because a lot of times what happens with silos and thinking too small is clearly you believe you can go no further or don't need to go any further. So you then, in essence, have arrived. And once you get there, you stop believing that you can do better, that things could be greater, that they could be bolder. You should never have a sense of we've arrived. You should always be trying to grow, to become better, to become more innovative. And a lot of times with government, and government things associated with government, there's this sense that change is bad. Well, if change is bad, so is innovation. And there may be a better way of doing things, which require you to think outside of the box, outside of the silo. New problems present new opportunities for growth, new opportunities for innovation. And so one of the ways to move beyond that wall of stagnation is to collaborate with someone else. Iron sharpens iron, but you can't be afraid. And so if you create a culture where this kind of collaborative effort, this working outside of the box, this busting silos is not going to be a career ender or an organization ender, but an organization extender, a career enhancer. If you can create that kind of atmosphere, then the collaborative effort or working outside of the silos becomes something I think can be an incentive. And that's, of course, what we want to try and create.
Yeah, I'm thinking about all of the times that I've heard from people within city government when an idea is brought forward, like at an NRZ meeting or another community meeting. Like when an idea is brought forward, the response from the city is, well, we can't do that because ... like fill in the blank kind of thing. Like there's always like, well, we can't do that because
we don't have the funding.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have the funding for that. I don't know. That sounds like a good idea, but we can't do it. Instead of, well, that's going to be a challenge. Let's see how we can make it happen. Let's find a way to make it happen. Let's find the funding. Maybe there's a foundation that does this stuff. Well, let's work together. What do you need from us, since we're in service to you, to make it happen? And we go from there, because the city has massive resources. All of those resources are ultimately there to help the constituent, whether you be a business, a nonprofit, or a resident that lives here. So there are tens of hundreds of ideas. I'll push it up even into the thousands that come from Hartford residents for solutions, for fixes. They'll do the data. I remember when the stadium was before the stadium was built, and there was a lot of controversy. A lot of the citizens of Hartford did the deep dive in terms of the costs, what the negatives were, and a lot of them were just, they were just totally dismissed. Totally dismissed. The stadium, of course, has been wildly successful, but had there been more of a collaborative effort, the city might have been spared some of the negative impact that the stadium has caused, with the ultimate one coming down the hill of a potential $90 million in, claims of wrongdoing in terms of taking opportunities away. So when you work in that sense of things are going to benefit one party at the expense of another, those are how you create these super silos. And it becomes a domino effect. Everyone starts thinking that way. So you cause the opposite by encouraging people to work together, and when they understand that they can do so in what would be termed in these days a safe space, provided through our realigning of the priorities, so that people understand that it is necessary to collaborate, because we're not going to move the city forward with everybody divided, looking out for their own interests instead of the interests of the common good and the whole. I mean, the city is 17 neighborhoods. You fit the whole city inside the footprint of O'Hare International Airport, which is an authority of the city of Chicago. Well, we're too small. There are neighborhoods in New York who have the population of our entire city. Mm-hmm. They have the geographic footprint of our entire city. So we're too small to be fiefdomed out, siloed out, where everyone is only concerned about themselves. We have to begin to look at Hartford as one Hartford. Okay? One Hartford, not 17 Hartfords. Not, 300 nonprofits, not 400 churches, but one community working together for the enrichment and growth of the community. So priority number 3 focuses on that.
I love that. I'm gonna ask you to repeat that. That was so good. But just to really paint this picture for folks, bringing together different community and organizational stakeholders, what does that in practical terms look like? You sort of touched on how that would work, but what is your role as mayor? How do you accomplish that?
There are several ways you can accomplish it. You can facilitate the conversations and the discussions. One thing I like to do and would do as mayor, clearly this isn't something you can do if you're not the mayor, because you don't have the mayor's office. But it's always interesting to get people who might not necessarily be on the same page and bring them into a space where they have to talk with one another. And you leave them for a few minutes. I'm glad you guys could come. We talk about this difference that you guys have. I gotta go down the hall. 10, 15 minutes, no more than that. I can go down the hall. I'll be back. If you need anything, my executive assistant's right outside. Don't look at my desk. I'll be right back. And let them have some time together. I find that a lot of times people that don't get along don't know each other. And what they think they know of each other is wrong. And when they have a time to just sit down and be in each other's company, sometimes that is all that's necessary. I mean, we're not talking about, international interests that are feuding over oil or something like that. We're talking about people who ultimately want the same end. And so you bring people together, you have the difficult conversations in a safe space. and you can work miracles. You can work miracles. You can get people to work together on the things that they agree on. And the difference is you have mutual respect for. I respect that that's where you're coming from. You respect where I'm coming from. We don't have to agree on everything. But if we're here to work on behalf of children, if we're here to work on behalf of developing the city, if we're here to work on solving the issue around sewage backups in people's houses, there's ways we can work together if we're intentional about that without being at each other's throat, throwing the dagger of blame. All right. So let that blame fall on the mayor and see if we can't let you all work together. Throw the darts at me. I see that as part of the mayor's job.
All right. I'm thinking of a quote about trust. It's coming up for me at this point because it sounds like there would also have to be trust involved in that process. At least trust in you as the mayor. That there will be no negative repercussions and that it is a safe space and all that kind of stuff. So trust, I'm just bringing that up as another component that's necessary in an administration, in a mayor, in each other. And I know that is hard sometimes to build when trust has been broken, but I think it's just another quality that folks ought to look at.
I can't argue with you on that. Trust is earned. A lot of times people think that they deserve to be respected. They deserve to be trusted. I think there's a modicum of respect that you give to people because everyone is due a entry level of respect. Trust, on the other hand, which is, by the way, easy, it's knowing who to trust that's difficult. Because sometimes the people you trust the most are the people who you absolutely find out in the end that's the last person I should have been trusting. So trust is earned, and it's earned one point at a time. So as you have these conversations and people begin to realize that they can have that safe conversation, that they can have that safe space, that they can see a direct benefit and receive a benefit as a result of having that conversation, then that trust builds because people that trust them believe that they can now trust you because they were told so. And they weren't told so for political or personal gain or because they were paid off. They believe that because they actually got a benefit. So I believe in mutual benefit. Two people come together when they can both benefit in some way. Now, sometimes there is no benefit that's mutual. So if you can't establish a mutual benefit, then there's no reason to have the conversation. At least not yet. All right. So there has to be an opportunity for mutual benefit. If that can be identified, then you bring the people come in and you work that out. You lay it out and you show them how that can happen. And these perceived obstacles are not. But you have to demonstrate that. The mayor, the office of the mayor, the chair that actually has the power. It's not people do bring a certain element to it, but the authority and the power is not in the person. The authority and the power is in the seat, in the chair, the office. The office has the power. So those that are occupying that office have a tremendous responsibility to the people. So it's almost like I'll use the analogy of a marriage. You are married to the people, and they put tremendous trust in you. There is a dependency, if you will, like a client is, hires you, and they're dependent. They're dependent on you because of your level of expertise. You have someone to cut your hair or drill on your teeth or do an operation or work on your car. You hire these people because they are experts and you're dependent on them to do the job. So they are dependents. And so you have a responsibility as the person that's providing the service. Well, the mayor is providing the service for the constituents of managing the affairs of the city. And those affairs are broad and wide. So he can be a tremendous silo buster. He can be a tremendous individual that moves agenda forward. She can have the power, right? Because it's not a gender office, it's he or she, you know. So no matter what the gender is, you have the authority through the chair or through the seat. And your capacity to bring people together is the first step in breaking up those silos. You know, if there's a super silo, you know, a monster silo, it would be, you know, the mother of all silos in the city of Hartford would be the mayor's office. So I invite you into that silo, and we'll work on breaking that up from the inside out and breaking down those institutional walls that the city has, you know, put up to keep you out. Well, now it's your government. You come in. That, I think, would be a hallmark of a McCauley administration, working in concert with the people of Hartford, with the constituents of Hartford, with the real stakeholders, because it's their government, their city. So there's a lot more embraced by the idea or the notion of silo busting than just, you know, nonprofits working together. It's everyone working together. And that is essential in our 5-point plan. You know, youth, family, education, point 1, point 2, communications, point 3, which we're talking about right now, working outside of silos. Once those things are aligned, then you can actually start to get something done. You know, the fourth one is public safety. And of course, the fifth one is community economic development. So you really can't get to the community economic development until all the other things that are in the way of that get worked on. And if you just align these things correctly, then you can start to be, you know, have some direct impact on these things. We often talk about the path to impact. That path to impact has many impediments. There are a lot of things standing in the way of what we're trying to impact. And unless you get that alignment correct, you know, it's like lining up circles, tubes in a tunnel. Once they're aligned, then traffic can flow, water can flow, information can flow, opportunity can flow, growth can flow. As long as those are misaligned and out of alignment, nothing works.
I love that. I would love to see a visual of that, because I think that really just makes the point really clear on when you say alignment, and there needs to be a realignment. But I'm imagining that, and so my creative brain is working right now on how to get a visual going of those tubes and coming together and like looking through one path to impact.
One path to impact.
One path to impact.
Mm-hmm. And you know, while we're on the path to impact, here's a great way of looking at the path to impact. You're in a burning building. The impact is the exit door to the street. Now, how are you going to get from where you are out of the building? What is the path to impact? Impact is safety. Impact is freedom. Impact is empowerment. It's a way of escaping what is holding you back. All right. It's a way of being empowered. But the best way to think about it is you're in a burning building. There's no room for error. The longer it takes you to get out the building, the more your life is at risk. You can even have people come and help rescue, like our superior fire department that uses aggressive interior attack to fight the fire to save your life. They'll go and get you and bring you to the path of impact. They know how to get out because they know how they got into where you are. They're experts at fighting fires. Well, that's what your government should be, an expert at resolving the issues that are inhibiting you to get to that path or get through that path to the point that you're trying to get to. So if you trip and fall, if you go down a stairwell that's blocked, there's a lot of things that can impact you on the way. So I'll use another for instance. The students are not doing well in school. Someone might say, well, we need to give the teachers a raise. Well, how does that impact Johnny and Shaniqua? The teacher gets an immediate impact, right? Financial impact. Teachers doing real well. Their family can now go out for the abonically challenged. Their families, right? Their family can go out and buy a new car, or go on vacation, or make payments, get new phones. They can do all kinds of stuff. But that does not necessarily translate to Johnny and Shaniqua now having better grades. So that may be part of the process. Maybe now the teacher is happy and is better managed in their mind to be able to do a better job at school. But the job shouldn't be directly linked to how much money they're getting paid. The job should be, how do I get this young man or this young woman to have a better education? And the more you impact that person, the more you justify the raise. See, they're not working the way they should.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and
they're not aligned.
They're out of alignment, and we talked a little bit about that on Monday or in program 1, talking about teachers.
Mm-hmm.
They're worthy of their pay.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we're also worthy of getting a kid that can read.
Right.
So.
Right. The child for certain is deserving and worthy of an education.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, J. Stan, I think we have accomplished our goal, our path to impact, which is communicating about your third priority. Mission-driven collaboration and working outside our silos.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, folks, if you want to learn more about a McCauley administration and what you'll get with a J. Stan McCauley as mayor, please visit McCauleyformayor.com. You can read all about the 6-point plan, but we also invite you to drop a comment wherever you may be watching this program. Give us a call. Stan's cell phone number, 860-944-9797. The second number I know by heart. Any other number, I would have to rely on my cell phone. But with that being said, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. But please, we're here all week talking about the 6-point plan, giving you an opportunity to take a closer look, hear more of the thinking behind this plan, and what will a McCauley administration look like for the city of Hartford. But most importantly, Tuesday, November 7th is your time, Hartford. It's your time to shine, and that is you going out to vote 1H for J. Stan McCauley for One Hartford. Until next time, be well.
What happens in the voting booth stays in the voting booth. Even if someone wheels you up to the polling station after buying your groceries or pays you by the hour to door knock, you can still vote like an independent thinker. Vote like you're demanding better police accountability. Vote like you're demanding functioning schools that put Hartford children first. Vote like you're demanding your mayor puts Hartford residents and neighborhoods first. Vote like Hartford's government belongs to you, the constituent. Because to the party, you are just a vote. However, to me, you are a constituent, my boss, and I work for you. So when you go into the voting booth, have the courage to vote your conscience and vote for a man you can trust to be accountable to you, the constituents of Hartford. My name is J. Stan McCauley. I am an independent thinker and I approve this message. I'm asking you for your vote on Tuesday, November the 7th, 2023, in the general election for mayor of the city of Hartford. For more information, visit McCauleyformayor.com. And remember, what happens in the voting booth stays in the voting booth. It's your time, Hartford, so have the courage to trust your conscience and vote for the name you know and trust.